Now we worked a lot on our posts. I now want to work on my users. And for that, we first of all need to add a new model in our Node project. There, I'll add a user.js file where I define how a user should look like in my application. So here I'll import Mongoose, and of course feel free to do these steps on your own. We did them a couple of times. I will access my schema here, and then I'll define my user schema with new schema here, and we'll add some properties, of course. By the end, I'll export a Mongoose model, which I'll name user. Hence, it will get stored in a user's collection, which uses this user schema. Now, how should a user look like? Obviously, that is totally up to you. To fit my front end, a user should have an email, which will be of type string and which is required. A user also will have a password, which is of type string and which will be required. A user also will have a name in my application, type string and required, you guessed it. And a user here also will have a status. So status is also of type string and required. That is this thing which caused this error in the front end all the time because we couldn't load it. Now, a user will also have a couple of posts. So I'll add my posts here. This will be an array. And now each object in the array will be of type schema types object ID, because this will be a reference to a post. And therefore, I add this ref key and add the post model. So I'll store references to posts in my users or on my users. This is how a user should look like. If you want, you can also add the timestamps. I don't need them here. So now I got my model set up. We can now use that model to set up a sign up and later also a login route. So let's create a new route, and I'll name that user.js or maybe auth.js because it will be authentication related. In there, just as before, we import express by requiring express. We then create that express router by calling express router as a function like this. And we, of course, export this router. Now, in between, we define our user or our authentication related routes. And there, for example, I want to have a post route. And you could argue that you also set a put route maybe. Let's go for a put route because actually we create a user once. So we could also say whether it's new or we override existing data, we put the data, but both would be fine. Here we'll have sign up as a route, let's say, and then I need some controller, of course. Now, I'll also add validation, and to actually reach these routes, we have to go to the app.js file. And there, where I import my feed routes, I'll duplicate this and also set up an auth routes constant where I import routes auth. And then at the bottom of the file, where I have my feed routes, I'll also add /auth to forward requests that start with /auth in the path to auth routes. Now we are able to reach these routes, and now we need the controller. So let's work on the controller and add validation in the next lecture.